First of all, welcome everyone to the Youth Environmental webinar. I'm really excited to hear everyone's opinions and experiences today. I'm super grateful. I'm really looking forward to it. And we're just going to start off by getting every organization here to give a little 1 to 2 minute introduction about their organization. So Megan, would you like to start off?
Yep, I'm happy to. So hi everyone, my name's Megan and I'm the founder and executive director at the Urban Garden Initiative. Just to give everyone a little bit of background about TUGI, we are an international 501c3 nonprofit that works to inspire and empower youth to achieve urban sustainability through a gardening-based program. So we focus a lot on just sustainability, environmental education, gardening education, and tackling problems such as like food hazards and food sustainability.
Okay, cool. Ali, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Ali, and I'm representing the Tomorrow Project today. The Tomorrow Project is a youth-led nonprofit dedicated to instilling sustainable habits in the rising generation through classroom and online curricula. The Tomorrow Project was founded by 4 high schoolers in the Seattle area. We saw an urgent need to close the gap in our education system where climate education is absent, and we're really motivated by looming climate factors such as global warming, plastic pollution, etc. So yeah, that's our organization.
That's really cool. All right. Would you like to go next, Marty?
Sure. Hi, my name is Mardet, and I'm the co-founder of Eco House Teens, which is a youth organization that promotes environmental sustainability. So we target like the fashion and the food industry. We just finished our first campaign with fashion. Next, we're going to talk about food industry, and we just really hope to spread awareness within teens and promote a sustainable lifestyle.
Cool, that's very interesting. Okay, so next up we have Joshua.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Joshua, representing Lem Blue as executive director and co-founder. Our work is similar to TUGI's, as we are a nonprofit organization that is foremost aimed at creating conversations with our Generation Z, around issues such as climate and environment, inequalities, and pollution in general. So we are an advocacy organization. Yeah, and I'm from Nigeria.
Cool. So last but not least, we'll have Boya. Would you like to introduce Garden Bank?
Hi everyone, my name is Boya. I'll be representing Garden Bank today. I'm the founder. What Garden Bank is that we're an international youth-led nonprofit organization based in Vancouver, Canada, that promotes sustainable gardening practices while tackling the issue of food insecurity. Some of our projects that we've done in the past include constructing and maintaining gardens at high schools, making and donating sandwiches to the homeless, bottle drives, etc.
Great. So just to give a little background, I'm on the board team of Garden Bank, so that's a little bit about me. So after we've heard all of these wonderful introductions, we're just going to jump into the questions. So who wants to go first for the first question? Is there any volunteers? No?
I can go first.
Okay. Mardet, I saw you said that you want to go first.
Sure.
So what is the backstory of your organization, and why really did you get started?
So I co-founded this organization with my friend Zainab, and so one day we were just talking, and we were both really interested in starting a club at our school for our senior year because we were interested in the environment. She's really interested in the food industry, I'm interested in the fashion industry, and we thought it would be perfect to do both together. But after we realized we couldn't really have a club at school because of COVID, we realized we could just like have an online organization where we can reach a larger audience, and we can have a larger impact on the world too. So that's kind of where we got started.
Okay, that's a really interesting background. I saw Ali, you said you want to go next?
Yeah, I kind of touched on this a little bit, but my organization kind of really came at the angle that youth are super impressionable. So we kind of targeted our audience towards elementary school students. And again, we kind of go into classrooms and teach online or teach workshops and activities having to do with climate science and climate change in general. And yeah, I think that was really kind of our motivator. And again, of course, with all the climate change factors stacking on top of each other, it was something that we were really passionate about and something that we thought we could really have an impact on. So yeah, and we just see a really big gap in climate education and thought that we could do something to help close that. So that's kind of where we're coming from.
That's a nice story. Okay. Joshua, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. I think similar to Ali, really, we are focused on ourselves, which is Generation Z, because we feel like most Generation Z individuals are not informed properly on climate education, generally on the sustainable development goals. But I think the main reason why this all got started was, this personal story I have as to my allergies to fumigants and stuff. So I had that allergy, and for me was, how do I ensure that the next person with the allergies, doesn't get some sort of reaction that could lead to something even worse? Because according to research, hundreds of thousands of people die every year in my country due to related causes as air pollution generally. So it was for us, it was wanting to ensure that people were aware that people were dying from air pollution, and seeing how we can individually contribute to reduce that. And that was pretty much what birthed Lemblue. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's an interesting story as well. Boya, would you like to go next?
Sure. So I started Garden Bank because gardening has always been one of my lifelong passions. But however, as I entered my high school years, I noticed that like my peers around me didn't have the slightest interest in gardening at all. And realizing that gardening is a great way to tackle climate change, I wanted to inspire the youth around me to get to basically to become involved with gardening. So that's why I started Garden Bank.
Yes, that is a good summary of how gardening started. Last but not least, Megan, would you like to give a little summary?
Yeah. So the Urban Garden Initiative originally got started here within Delaware, and what we were really working to tackle was this major food desert problem prevalent within my own community. And just for anyone listening that's not really familiar with food deserts, they're pretty much areas where it's really hard for people to access healthy fruits and vegetables. There's no grocery stores. And it was just crazy to me at the time when we first started that areas like these still existed within the US. So after kind of learning about that on a firsthand perspective and working at some various urban gardens and going to different farmers markets, I really wanted to do something about tackling this issue. So we started off just doing, educational programming here and kind of developing the space program. And from there, other youth started wanting to get involved and bringing what we do to their own community, which is how we started expanding both nationally and then later internationally as well.
Yeah, that's a really interesting story. So after we kind of heard about everyone's backstories, here's a little question that's related. What do you think is the main driving force behind your organization? So what keeps you going, even if you started this organization, and what really inspires you? So let's start maybe with Joshua this time.
Sure. I think for me, it's it's the fact that one, it's not just another organization. It's not just that I wanted to start a project and become some sort of activist, really, because it's not something that's populated in my country or environment. Activism is not exactly a thing. For me, it's the fact that there is this issue or there is this problem that affects me really, and affects 100,000 additional people that I don't even know, and I wanna sort of be part of that movement that ensures people are even aware that this is a problem. So the for me it's the term passion, but I had to elaborate just before saying passion because passion can be very vague. But yeah, so it's the personal attachment to that mission or to our vision, and that's why I can sort of like keep on going even when things are quote unquote hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I can personally attest that when an issue affects you personally, it's when you're the most passionate about it. Yeah. So how about we go to Boya next?
Okay, so the driving force behind Garden Bank is essentially like just seeing and realizing the impact that we are able to make in the community as youth. For example, historically we've done some events such as like donating sandwiches to the homeless, and then through that experience I realized that like they really appreciate what we do, and then just like seeing the ability for us to put a smile on their face is what drives us to keep going with our activities.
Great, that's a short but good summary. How about we have Megan go next?
Yeah, I would totally agree with what Boya said. I think TUGI or all of our panelists on this tonight are all like youth focused and youth driven organizations, and it's just incredible from where we just started here within Delaware to expand completely internationally, almost all led by youth, and just the power that we all have in making a difference in this world is truly amazing. And just being able to connect with so many other like young environmental change makers that are so passionate about the same issues that we're working towards has been amazing. And I think that's what keeps us going.
Yeah, that's a pretty good summary of this question. We're going to move on to Mardette. Mardette? Oh. Seems like she's having some issues on her end. How about we move on to Allie?
Sure. So the Tomorrow Project, I'd say our driving force is really peer-to-peer learning. It's a huge part of our program, and I think like by going into classrooms as high school volunteers, we really truly want to lead by example and be mentors for our students. I think seeing older high schoolers is something that younger students can really look up to and learn from and take away the lessons that we're giving. And so I think, yeah, peer-to-peer learning and mentorship is a huge driving force of our organization.
Cool. Yeah, I really love that. Mardette, it seems like you've returned.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm not sure why.
We'll be fine. Great. So we're just going to ask you to give a little summary of what's the driving force behind your organization.
Yeah, sure. I would say it would be like our interest in what we're doing and the fact that like it affects us personally too. But more than that, it's also just like realizing that we could actually do something with the information we give out. Like we can reach a large audience on social media because it's like you can, with hashtags, with accounts you follow, a lot of people can see what you post, and that information can really spread quickly and really affect the way people make their decisions and the information they get or have.
Great. Yeah, I think that's a great answer. Okay, so one of our next questions, I'm just going to ask you guys to give a little summary on what some of the current projects you're working on are. So does anyone want to volunteer to go first?
I can jump into this one. So we have a number of projects going on right now, both in person and remotely. I would say in terms of remote, we have our 5-week virtual program that we have going on, which Boya can talk more about as well. But starting actually tomorrow, all the way until the last week of August, every Sunday at 6 p.m. EST, we're doing a virtual workshop on various environmental topics. The one tomorrow is going to be on sustainability and starting container gardens. And we also have, our blog and curriculum development, all these other projects going on. And then in person at some of our various chapter locations, we're working on starting many new gardens. We just actually did a small volunteer event yesterday, building a garden at a Boys and Girls Club, and just bringing, more local food to the communities there. So that is also something we're doing in some of our other chapters as well.
Cool. Yeah, that's a pretty complete agenda. I saw Allie, you had your hand up.
Sure. So we also have quite a few projects going on right now. So kind of our outreach team is really working on our first webinar workshop, which is coming up here in August. And we're also hopefully going to turn that into a series sometime soon. It's been really difficult for our organization to shift from all of our in-person classroom workshops to online workshops. So that's been a huge part of what our organization has been doing. We're creating video content for our YouTube channel and blogs for our website. And really just during this time, establishing connections with other youth organizations and activists. So yeah, that's kind of what we've been up to.
Great, yeah. I think that's a great summary of basically all organizations. There are struggles during this time of quarantine, especially just shifting everything online. Joshua, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. I think for us, what we've been doing lately, just like Ali said, the coronavirus pandemic has made us like have a pivot. We've literally had to sort of not redefine, but edit our mission statement, you know, to sort of encompass the broader perspective of what's going on with the Black Lives Matter movement, and the pandemic itself. And I think some of the projects we're working on now includes we've done a test run for this one, which is the One Plant One Family challenge, which is a social media challenge / environmental campaign that is aimed at having young people, well, pretty much everyone actually, but mostly young people, plant something while they're at home, while they're in quarantine, while you're attending virtual classes, and just grow that tree for 3 months. And if you want to keep that tree or that plant, that's fine. And if you don't want to do that, you can donate it to some organization that deals with tree planting in your locality. I think the other thing that we're working on, the other project, we are sort of, you know, because everything is virtual now. Our work had entirely been virtual for an international organization, but because everybody's home now and there is more time dedicated to like being online and being on virtual classes and Zoom calls, we want to bring this idea, this goal we had for like the next 2 years forward into 2020, which is the Thinkathon, which we're supposed to hold into like 2022 or 2021 ending, to a virtual, you know, very large scale Thinkathon, which, you know, as the name implies, it's like a hackathon, but just literally 48 hours of rapid sort of thinking of the next innovative solutions for solving environmental pollution, or building the next application that will tell you, oh, turn off your light when you're not using it. So yeah, those are like basically what we've been up to.
Cool, yeah, that's a pretty full agenda too. It's a great summary. Mardette, would you like to go next?
Sure. So right now we just finished getting our team together and making like decisions on our official team. So we're going to be announcing that in the coming, probably next week or something like that. But our next campaign is going to be on the food industry, and we're going to focus on food deserts, a lot of like problems that exist in America as well as the rest of the world. But we wanted to focus on food because that's like one of our interests as well. So I think that's going to be what's coming up next. But
Yeah, that's a very, very nice thing to focus on. I'm really interested in looking at your guys' content in the future. Last but not least, let's have Boya.
Okay, yeah, so like what Mardad said, we also just finished hiring our executive team, and I see some members of our executive team actually on this call. So hi guys. And then like what the others said, right, like in the past few months, because of COVID, we had to transition our activities from in-person to virtual. So like, I think Megan mentioned this, but we're hosting a 5-week project. So every weekend on Sunday, we're hosting a virtual workshop on environmental topics. And then we're also in the process of starting new chapters around the world. So we currently have one in India, but we're currently expanding to the United States and Singapore and some other places around the world. And then currently we're launching a partnership with a kindergarten in Tanzania, where we'll be supplying them with the funding to help them get a garden started so that they can like grow fresh produce for their children.
Nice, that's a pretty good summary of what Garden Bank is going to do, yeah, in the coming weeks. So moving on, I know that all of us here at this webinar today come from varying backgrounds. In terms of organization, some of us are just starting out, but some of us have been here for a while. So, what are some challenges have you faced what are some challenges you faced that came up when you were creating your organization? So, does anyone want to go first? Anyone have a burning thing to say? Joshua? Yeah.
Okay. I just want to say first, Boya, your organization is amazing. Geez, wow, that's awesome. I wish I could do what you do. Yeah, so I think some of the challenges I have sort of gone through, in the process of sort of building an organization that happens to now be, in pretty much 5 continents, is just getting the right team, right? There is this now cliche that teamwork is the dream work, or teamwork makes the dream work, but in reality, it's actually what it is, right? It is what it is. You know, without the right team, you really cannot scale. So I think one of the major issue I had initially was like building a team, right? Getting the right set of people. If we're gonna have people from we have people in China, we have people in India, Pakistan, the US, literally all over. How do we get these people together to share this common mission or this common goal? And how do we ensure that they are motivated or passionate about the work that we do, so they don't just like join and after a month or two, they just lose that vibe? So that was like the biggest issue. And I think another issue, of course, that I face personally, and this probably applies to most sort of African or Nigerian change makers, is the fact that change making, it's a non-profit, right? So I'm running a non-profit, which means, as the name implies, I'm not making money from it. So I cannot exactly say I own a company because, it's a non-profit. And there is a whole misconception around running a non-profit where it just doesn't work, right? There isn't exactly motivation from people around, not immediate family necessarily, but like people generally. You're just not free to say, "Oh, hi, I'm a climate activist," because that doesn't make any sense. So I think you have to deal with that doubt every single time, because you're not even sure that the message you're trying to convey is being passed. So I think for me personally, when I had the catalyzing moment when I decided, screw this, whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen, I'm gonna do it, was when I literally Madet mentioned this. I'm talking about hashtags on social media. I work as a social media manager and stuff, and I was able to just one tweet, literally just one tweet, went viral, and it started this whole movement for cleaning my city, and that started the movement, and we're on the BBC, and everything else just like exploded. And I was like, if there are people on social media who are going to listen to me, so I don't even care if my neighbor says, I'm stupid, right? So that was like how I sort of fixed that problem. But yeah, I think the two major issues I faced is just building a team, and especially when it comes to building a global team, and also dealing with like negative feedback. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good summary of what a lot of us go through. The passion and the drive thing is such a huge thing you have to look out for when you're hiring people. You have to make sure that, they're not just going to back out after a few days or a few months. And also like just ignoring what people say about you and just keep going with why you started the organization is so important. Is there anyone else who wants to volunteer? Megan?
Yeah. I'd love to jump in right after Joshua just because he touched on some really amazing points. I think with TUGI, even though it seems like we've been running it for a long time, actually we've only been around for maybe a year and a half, nearing our second year, but especially as like a pretty fast growing organization. As I said before, we started just here within Delaware, but now we have 40 plus chapters globally, and we're expanding on like a daily basis. It's not only about, I think, scaling sometimes and going to new locations, but also ensuring that every single time you build a new chapter, every single time you take on a new volunteer or someone joins your team, that it's not only the numbers that you're looking at, but that they're actually doing tangible work and making actual progress, or whether it's a chapter and actually implementing some of the goals of those chapters. So especially as we really vastly expanded initially, along that road we've ran into kind of several bumps where it's like, it's not only important to just have these new chapters in these locations, are they actually implementing these various projects that we want them to take on? And that's something that as we start going into our second year, we are not a lot more cognizant of, And now we're ensuring that all of the chapters we build are not just because it's a cool location and just because we're, building a chapter in Asia now, but that the chapter leaders actually invested into pursuing TUGI's mission and actually bring these goals into their community.
Yeah, I think that's such an important thing to think about, is just doing it for like the passion and not for the sake of expanding or anything. So next up, how about we have Mardet?
Sure. So I would say the hardest, like the hardest challenge that we've had so far was so we started like Eco House Teens around June, and when we started, we didn't really have anyone on our team. It was just me and Zainab, who's the co-founder as well. So we had to do like all the research, all like managing social media, reaching out, everything, just the two of us. So we had to commit a lot of time into that, which it wasn't that big of a problem because we were both we were really interested in like growing our initiative, but it was kind of hard to manage everything at once. So we're really excited to have more people on our team so that we can assign different like roles or like jobs for each person, so we don't have to worry about doing everything ourselves. So I would say that was the biggest challenge.
Yeah, I definitely have personal experience with having like a small team doing a lot of things at once, where I can attest to that. Next up, how about we have Ali?
Sure. Okay, so I kind of touched on this before, but out of all the challenges we faced, COVID-19 has definitely been our biggest challenge. We kind of had to shift everything we were doing, and it was really unprecedented. We didn't know how long it was going to last and everything, and we're still working through that. So, if you everyone's been saying, if you build a team of people who are really invested and motivated with the same mission in mind, it made that change that much easier, even though it was still a really huge challenge, but people are really willing to work through that. So that's definitely something to keep in mind when you do applications or anything like that. And then probably the second biggest challenge within my organization is definitely communication. Again, we're also expanding every day and building and gaining volunteers and building chapters, and I think it's really important to make sure everyone stays on the same page, and you kind of update your team as you go along, and make sure everyone's kind of just stays connected and support each other within our own organization. So yeah, that's probably the two biggest challenges we faced. But when you have a solid team of people who are motivated, it makes it that much easier to work through those challenges.
Yeah, that's a good summary of what organizations in general have been going through during the COVID crisis. Probably like even just regular businesses are affected. All right, last but not least, let's have Boya.
Okay, so some challenges that I've faced, and I think most of us have encountered this before as youth, is being able to balance our time between school, our organizations, as well as our personal life. So like during the school year, especially during like exam season, life gets really busy, and it's often hard to dedicate like our time as well as have the motivation to keep running our organizations. And then since there's COVID-19 now, a new challenge that we're currently facing is funding. So traditionally, like we fundraise by selling Krispy Kreme donuts around our community, but with like all these lockdown restrictions and stuff, that's very difficult to do right now. Also, like many companies, they're facing like very difficult financial situations, so they're like pretty reluctant to sponsor nonprofits. So to adapt, like we just basically began doing events that do not require like a lot of funding, such as this webinar right now.
Great, yeah, that's a really important point too, just how COVID has affected us. So moving on to some more deeper questions, kind of. So what do you think are some main takeaways or some main lessons you've learned from creating your organization? And like, do you have any tips for other people, like from these takeaways or lessons? So does anyone want to start off? No. Oh, Ali, yeah.
Okay, so biggest takeaways. Oh my gosh, there's been so much, but I think we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but it's kind of from my perspective, really it's okay to not, do everything or put everything on yourself. Delegating work is so important to keeping an organization balanced, and keeping you healthy and stable with everything that's going on in your life. So yeah, we kind of delegating things for different teams, dividing up the work is so important, and then having those team members to hold you accountable for your work, and you hold others accountable is really important to running an organization overall. So I think that's having that support system there is really important for any organization, and that's probably a takeaway that I've learned from this whole experience.
Cool. Yeah, that's so important. Just delegating work and just making sure that everyone is on their own task is something that is just, you can't be without it. All right. Mardette, I saw.
Yeah. So the biggest lesson I would say is I realized that there are a lot of people interested in like starting something or joining something that about like the environment and environment sustainability. And because like we had a lot of people apply to join our team, and I was reading through their like little answers, and they were very passionate. They talked about like their daily lives, what they do in school, what they try to do to make sure they're staying sustainable. And it was just really interesting to see that kind of stuff. Because I mean, I knew people were interested in stuff, but it's nice to see that there are a lot of others who share the same interests as me.
Yeah.
And I would say some tips would be, if you're really interested in something, I would say just go for it. And if you really want to start something, you can do it, as long as you have like the support. If you have someone to talk to, somebody that you can work with even, or just like, I guess, take breaks, just like take care of yourself as well, and just know that you can do it if you really want to do it.
Yeah, great. It's a good little summary. How about let's have Joshua go next?
Yeah, I think I want to say Ali and Mardet, they literally just like said all I could possibly say, but I'm just gonna say it in my own word again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like going with Ali, I'm so sorry. Going with Ali, talking about doing what you want to do, having to just going for it, right? I think there's a misconception with that. What happens is, I love the point, obviously, but I think just to like put this out there, and it's something I say a lot of the times, is you don't exactly have to start your own initiative. She mentioned, having people apply who are passionate. We have, I think, the last volunteer application we opened, we had like 66 people apply for a number of positions, and I think we ended up picking just about 5 to 8 people, which is crazy. And it's not because they are not all passionate, but it's because, there has to be that level of you really want to do this work. And that also applies to being a go-getter. Most people want to like start projects because, they're seeing Megan, or they're seeing Mad, they're seeing me, they're like, oh, they're awesome people, they're teenagers, they have this organization that they're running and it's successful, so I have to start mine too. But that's not how it works, right? So people just want to like start stuff without like doing like the work or the research, if I do say so. And I think another thing I've sort of learned, and this also applies to what Ali said, is delegation. It's so important, because I can be a workaholic when I want to be. I could literally just spend hours and hours on my computer or my phone just building. It could be a website, it could be literally anything. But if I want to do it, I would spend a day just like doing that thing. And I have an entire team that for these things, we have, I think, about 7 teams. So what I had to learn over time was just learn to delegate work. It's so much healthier, because I feel, I felt, most people can relate, like I felt ill. It was just that screen time, it was so intense, and you would fall sick. So you have to like look at your health while you're trying to save the world or the environment or whatever. You have to like look at your health as well, and know that if you're not dying, but like if your health is not in place, then who's gonna lead this charge? Because one other thing I learned is, most times your teams cannot really fully function without you, as the leader, as the person who has the personal story, as the person who has the passion or the connection to the mission, as the co-founder or founder. There is this resilience you have towards ensuring that your project succeeds or is a success, and nobody else on your team would have that too. So you're always going to be like needed to lead, right? You even when you're absent, they need you to say, oh, we need to do the next thing. And it's not because they're incompetent, but it's because that's what you signed up for as a leader or as an executive director or as a co-founder. So I think, yeah, just the things I've learned really are, of course, learn to delegate tasks. It helps you like health wise. Also, whilst it's important to be a go-getter, and if you're passionate about something enough to want to do something about it, you can. But before you do something, you can also as well check if there's an organization that's already doing something similar, and then you could just volunteer with them in a leadership role or whatever, rather than having to start. It's like wanting to rewrite the wheel, or how does the thing go, like wanting to just reset the wheel that's already in motion trying to solve something, right? So yeah, I think those are like key takeaways and my advice.
Yeah, that's a really complete takeaway from just organization in general. I really liked how you talked about taking care of your own health, as Ali did before. Activist fatigue is definitely something that exists, and it just relates to balancing like your organization work and like your personal health and personal life in general. So next up we have Boya.
Yeah, so my biggest takeaway from like running my organization is probably just to not be scared to fail. So I started off Garden Bank with zero experience with nonprofits, and like I've never even led a team before. So I made like a lot of mistakes early on, and I failed at a lot of things that I wanted to accomplish within my organization. And to this day, like I still make a lot of mistakes, but those mistakes and like the failure that I faced, they were very important learning experiences for me. And that's probably what led Garden Bank to be where we are today.
Yeah, that's a good summary. All right, last but not least, we have Megan.
Yeah, I think like Joshua said, everyone kind of summed up some of the points I want to make, but I kind of divided some of the other things I want to say into like three main categories, just touching on things that people haven't really said already. So I'd say number one is that not only for just nonprofits, but just opportunities in general, it's always all right to say no, not only because of your mental health and your physical health, because balance is really important, but also when it comes to new opportunities, although sometimes it might sound really awesome, taking on 10 opportunities and not being able to put in your full amount of time into each one will ultimately not result in that much at all. So I think it's so important to sometimes, if you have, the stack of opportunities in front of you, pick the ones that you really want to work on right now, and then new opportunities will always come in the future. So don't be afraid if sometimes you say no to something. It seems like you just made the worst decision, but trust me, it's not going to be the worst decision. Also, just relating to nonprofits, I would say Boyd, for the prior question, touched on this, but I think sometimes people are kind of afraid to talk about finances, but for running any type of organization, finances, fundraising, all of that is really important as well. So I definitely learned the hard way of initially it's always just like passion and volunteers, but then you want to start actual projects and you have no funding whatsoever. So it's so important to ensure before you get started on a project, can you apply for grants? Can you look for funders? What ways can you kind of financially support this project? And maybe it starts off with you putting a little bit of money in, and then you can just kind of see it grow. But there's so many different avenues that you can kind of look down. And last one, to kind of sum up what many people have already said, is that starting a nonprofit is not, or starting a business is not the only solution to making change. If you're really passionate about a lot of these issues, individual change is so important. So implementing a lot of these different things that some of our organizations work towards, and making those daily changes first, and kind of seeing how that works, and then you can build on top of that and make larger projects. I'm sure all of us on this panel right now didn't start from bare minimum and then creating an organization. There are so many steps leading up to that. For example, for TUGI, I worked at an urban garden pretty much the year before I started TUGI altogether, and got so much firsthand experience. So that's super duper important, and always look for opportunities like that within your community.
Great, yeah, I think that question inspired some great conversation. Moving on to another question. I know a lot of us come from like different backgrounds and we're all different ages and stuff, but do you think that your organization is something that you'd want to continue in your future? and like maybe well into your adulthood? And how do you think you'll maintain that connection, and like why? So does anyone want to start off? Joshua? Yeah.
Okay. This question is literally the kind of question you get for becoming a global team leader, or applying for some sort of grant. It's like, what's the vision for the next 10 years or the next 15 years? And I love it so much because it makes you think. You just like literally have to think about the future by all means. And I think for me, we've come up with this, personally, I've come up with this like mindset of, yes, I'm going to be involved in my organization long term, but also I definitely would sort of have a job. Um, in sort of researching, about organizations, I think Megan mentioned there are steps you have to take, there are things you have to learn. What I've learned in terms of like building a structure for my organization, which we're literally always iterating and still building, is you really cannot be part of the organization for forever, for various reasons. I think for me, the biggest one would be just because Gen Z, we are a Gen Z led organization, right? So even if I'm 30, I'm still part of Generation Z. However, we want to ensure that the audience for the organization is around teenagers. It's around people who are 13 to 22, right? So that's like the age range for every single thing we do, from volunteers to sort of our large social media following. So once I'm like above those age range, yes, I could remain ED, or become a member of the board, or become chairman or president, or whatever comes. So yeah, I think for me it would be, yes, I would be involved, but not at a day-to-day capacity. I would not be, delegating tasks anymore. It would just be not retired, but just be like a chairman of the board. That sounds really cringy and like excessive, but yeah, it's basically just like overseeing how the project would work. Because for me, and I think for most people that I know, starting these projects, aside from the fact that we're passionate about what we do, it's sort of like a legacy, right? If things are done right, if you're able to make that change or that impact that you want to make, it becomes a legacy. It becomes what you're known for. It's like, oh, hi, who's Joshua? And then what you think of next is Lemblue. That's an organization. So, it's this correlation that you want to preserve. So even if you're going to be 40 or 50, you want to still say, oh, I'm Joshua, that started Lemblue, and I still run Lemblue, just not directly involved. So yeah, I would be involved with Lemblue in the next, couple years, decades, but just not on my keyboard. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good summary of the relationship with your organization, just for any leader. Is there anyone who would want to go next? Yali, yeah.
Okay, so I probably should have made this a little more clear at the beginning, but I'm not one of the founders. I joined the Tomorrow Project a couple months in. I'm on the National Directors Committee, and I'm a board member, and I'm an outreach director. So I kind of have several roles within the organization, but I'm not a founder. So that being said, when I applied for the position to be outreach director, there was a time limit. So as soon as you graduate high school, they put new people into the position. And so because a huge part of our organization is that peer-to-peer learning and mentorship, and because that's the base of our organization, coming from high schoolers to elementary schoolers, you kind of time out of the organization. But of course, in the future, so I'm going to be a junior in high school, but in the future, I'd love to support the Tomorrow Project and my project, whether that be donating if I'm financially able to do that, or of course supporting and getting these opportunities out there and continuing to do that for my organization. But there is a time limit on my position at my organization.
Great, yeah. Our last person who's going to answer this question, Mardette.
Sure. So I would say that I personally am really passionate about the subject, so I would love to continue being part of it in adulthood and like when I'm in college and everything. But I would think that I wouldn't be as involved as I am now, because I probably wouldn't have the time or like the commitment needed to like run an organization full time. So I would say like I would definitely like be part of it somehow, however that might be, but I wouldn't be as involved as I am now.
Great, yeah. All right, we're going to be moving on to one of the last questions for today. So maybe in around 3 sentences, could you give a little summary on the impact that your organization has made in general? So does anyone want to go first? Maybe Megan?
Yeah, I think impact can be measured in many different ways. So on just kind of a number standpoint, as I kind of mentioned before, we're starting, or we have started over 40 chapters globally. I think at this point now, we are also on 5 different continents. We've been able to raise over $10,000 in funding, that kind of thing. But I also think impact comes from, the individual change that people have been able to make. And as we continue to grow as an organization and have our gardening programming and just educational programming last within schools for several years, we're going to be able to see how many of those students that we've taught implement these gardens in their own homes or want to take on larger environmental projects like that as well. So that is kind of impact that we're still looking to measure. But yeah, I think overall also just being able to, we have probably at this point over 200 volunteers that we engage worldwide in not only our chapters, but also remote projects, which has been really amazing. It's just awesome kind of building this community.
Great, yeah, that's a great summary of impact. Would anyone want to go next? Maybe Ali?
Sure. Okay. So for my organization, I say the biggest impact is that we really like to think that every student has the power to make change. And we hope that through our workshops and through our material, we're really helping them harness that power by providing them with the tools to do that. And then the impact within our own organization has truly been like through hardships and through, learning together through COVID. We really have helped support each other and navigate each other within our own organization. And I think that's been really, really important to kind of continuing to motivate each other and inspire each other within this change-making community. So yeah, I think that's the impact our project has really had.
Great. Next, maybe Boya.
Yeah, so I guess like impact, it's kind of like difficult to measure, right? So from like a numbers perspective, we have like multiple chapters in 4 different countries. But like one of the main things that we aim to do is to aspire youth, especially elementary students, to be more involved with gardening, right? So like in the past year, we've hosted some workshops to teach elementary students about gardening. And then I guess like we'll just have to wait and see like in the future if they're really into gardening or not.
Great. Next, do we want to have maybe Joshua go?
Yeah, and I think just agreeing with like literally everyone, impact can be measured in several ways. And I think if we're going to look at like from a business perspective, our KPIs are, how much social media reach we have, how much social media engagement we have, because we are an advocacy first organization. And then, how much physical outreach do we do, and call to actions. And in those aspects, then I would say for social media, we've run campaigns cumulatively since since last year, March to now, which is just like a year and 4 months old. We've reached about 5 million people through our several social media campaigns, and we've had like over 2 million engagement with people engaging with posts and comments and sharing it and telling their friends about an issue that we're passionate about. Also, we've had thousands of people signed petitions for global environmental crisis. And I think for like physical outreaches and chapters, we've established this presence and built a brand globally that it sort of now recognizes, this organization that deals with or that tries to talk about or that talks about really environmental pollution. So it's great to be able to quantify the fact that we're impacting perhaps not directly, but we know that when people hear about Lemblue, they hear about the climate change, and in turn, there's always a call to action that says, "Oh, this is what you can do to, save the planet." And I think in terms of measuring impact, one thing that we're trying to do is, because we're so invested in social media and our work is literally tied with social media, we want to be able to measure impacts by things like we adopted this thing called the United Nations Lazy Man Guide to Changing the World, which is sort of like instructions that help everyday people to reduce their carbon footprint, to contribute to reducing e-waste and all of that. So, we always sort of have call to actions on literally every single social media post or, blog post, and just ensuring that the next 1,000 people who are saying something have a resource that they could use to learn to be that change that they want to be. Yeah.
Great. Last but not least, let's have Marde give a little summary.
Yeah, so I would say our biggest impact is just like being able to reach people our age. Like I've had friends DM me and be like, I never knew any of this information that you posted. And it was really cool to see them react to what I said and decide to like be more sustainable, whatever that means to them. And also, so we were located in the Northern Virginia area, and we were able to interview some sustainable shop owners and bring attention to those shops so that more people are aware of them. Because like a big part of being sustainable is getting the knowledge and knowing how to do it. So that was pretty cool to do too.
Okay, great. We're going to end off with one last question. It's going to be a short and quick question. So give 2 tips on starting, on people who are interested in starting their own organization, especially for fellow youth. So just 2 short tips. Who wants to start? All right, Ali.
Okay, so one of my biggest tips I say to people when they ask me about this is really make sure that the work you're going to do or the mission you're forming for your organization is something that you really enjoy and that you really are passionate about, because it is building an organization is hopefully a long-term thing, and to have that long-term impact, it's really important that you hold on to those values that you established early on and you really enjoy the work that you're doing. And then the other biggest thing is definitely set goals and timelines. This is so important to organizations trying to get somewhere or kind of grow or expand. Set those goals and have people to hold you accountable, and it just makes the process that much easier. So yeah, I think really just laying out what you want to do and having that timeline is really helpful.
Great. Okay. How about let's move on to Boya. Just give little 2 tips for people who want to start their own organization.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Ali said. So passion is a very important thing. Like if you're passionate about something, you can essentially overcome every difficulty that you face. And then the second point I'd say is that just go for it. Like, don't be hesitant. There is no right time to do it, right? Like if you're really passionate about it, just go for it.
Okay. How about we have Mardet?
Sure. I would say a big part of starting an organization is being organized. There are a bunch of places you can start. You can use Google Drive. Honestly, that's what we use to organize everything that we do, because we put it into folders and we can just click on it, and it's really easy and it's free and it's very organized. So I'd say that's a big part of it. And also taking care of yourself. That's a big part.
We want to move on to Josh. Just 2 little tips.
Yeah, I think one of those tips would be, you guys, Boyer, Ali, and Matt, I've literally said everything, but one of my 2 tips would be, have a structure. Like, it's so important. You want to know who is, there should be some sort of hierarchy, right? You want to know who's leading what. and in terms of structuring, that also goes to like having a governing. You may not be wanting to get a 501c3 yet, or 3C rather, but you wanna, still have some sort of governing document or some sort of governing culture. You wanna, know that you're gonna be needing. Okay, this was mentioned by Megan, really, about funding. Lembley now, what we do is, because we're an African burn organization, we don't exactly naturally have access to a lot of funding opportunities. Like literally nobody cares about nonprofits here. But aside that, is the fact that because we know that, we've realized that, and even though we are global, what we do is our structure is centered around not needing funding, not needing money. We're an advocacy organization, and we're so tied up positioning that what that means is, at the very least, Megan mentioned it, we can put in our money to like run social media ads, because hello, it's not that expensive. It's something we could do from like our own like pocket or whatever. So we don't exactly need funds. So if you're gonna start a project, you wanna put funding into consideration and into your structure to know how you're gonna secure funding, how you're gonna ensure this is sustainable. Because if you start a project that you have funds for now, and there's no long time plan of how you're gonna fund it, or when it begins to scale, you cannot even fund these new chapters, then you're gonna crash likely. I think the last would be really, I think pretty much what everyone has said. Just if you really want to start a project, if you really are passionate about what you want to do, then just go for it. Okay. There is no, quoting pretty much Boya, there is no right time. There isn't, oh, okay, I think when I'm like 1 year old, I'm gonna do it. I think I have mentees who are like 14, 15, 16 who are doing such amazing work, and I'm like, why did I start this early? Like, why did I have to start at 19 or 18, So just start whenever you want to start. There is no age limits. There is no time frame. If you see a problem in your community that nobody's trying to solve, and you feel like you can do something about it, then please, by all means.
Yeah, all right. I think that's a good summary. Let's get Megan to round it off.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything that everyone said. Just last couple points would definitely be, before you get started, like many people have kind of touched on, do your research. Not only just, Google research, but although Google, which kind of has to do with my second point, is a great tool and definitely something you should utilize. There's so many answers to various questions, especially if you're in the process of actually registering and getting it started, that they can help to answer. But if you can, getting like that firsthand experience and kind of firsthand knowledge of some of the problems you're trying to tackle is super important. And then also, it's totally all right to not know everything when you're first beginning. Again, don't be afraid to use online resources. Don't be afraid to send out, cold emails to partners, to various organizations, and learn from people that have already been in the field forever. Although it might be daunting to make that cold email or make a phone call, sometimes you'll make really amazing connections that will help you later down the road. So yeah, just don't be afraid to get started.
Great. So that's basically the end of all the questions we have today. So now we're going to go into a little Q&A. And so the people who have been listening, thank you guys for being such a good audience. Do you have any questions? Or you can drop them into the group chat, or you can just unmute and speak.
So before the questions come in, I literally just wanted to like chip into what Megan said at the last minute on Google or Googling. This I even saw this on a TikTok, right, where people literally would just Google one thing and be like, I did my research and blah 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 blah. And no, a Google search is not a research, it's a Google search. So you have to check PDFs, you have to go through documents, you have to do the research as the word implies. And also she mentioned like getting experience, which is like getting internships to get a job at Apple or something. It's volunteering. It's not, I think I still pretty much volunteer to this very minute, on organizations that are bigger than mine. So it's the fact that you're able to be in the field and learn from industry professionals. And I think the last thing I would say, from picking on Megan's point again, is I don't call them code meals because I try so hard to write code meals and it just doesn't work. I call them lukewarm meals because, they're not exactly cold or hot or whatever. They're just like, me, it's just me trying to convey my character into an email, whilst also like literally hitting it on the head and saying, hey, I need your help with this, but not going to like direct and like being annoying and obnoxious. Again, this applies to the fact that I pride myself in saying I'm Gen Z and I'm free and I'm like a plural and all of that. So I'm always trying to convey that sense of Gen Z. We're not exactly conforming to like cold email standards. So I'm always just like free. So what I'm saying really is, yes, cold mails are amazing, but if you feel like you can't write a cold mail, you shouldn't fret. You could just like be yourself. I think most times, even depending on, of course, who you're writing to or where you're writing to, people sometimes, love to just see the personality through your writing, and then they want to even, suddenly call with you, and the rest could be, history.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just wanted to add one quick point in. This is more of like the informal part of the panel as well. So again, if any of you guys are comfortable enough to turn on your camera or go off mute, this part's really supposed to be more of like a conversation for all of us. So not only if you have like organizational questions, if you just want to learn more about us as people as well, this is the time to do it. So any type of questions or things like that as well are totally welcome.
Okay, well, first of all, I see a question in chat. So it's from Camille. I'm just going to summarize it a bit for you guys. So she wants to know basically some maybe tips and advice anyone can give to improve like time management skills and balancing like volunteer work and academics, and maybe some things to do to relieve your stress. So is there anyone who immediately wants to say something about it? Ali, yeah.
I love this question because I personally in the past have really struggled with procrastination. I'm sure a lot of us have in the past. One thing that I found super helpful for me is setting deadlines, like kind of what we've touched on, knowing when you want things to be done. And if there's some things that the deadline is closer to you, and you're gonna set a specific time to work during the day, start with the things that you need to get done first, the most important like priorities of what you need to do. That way, if you don't end up finishing your whole list, that way like the bottom things are things that you can push for a little bit longer or do the next day. But yeah, I just like to delegate a set of time during the day and really just sit down with no distractions and just do it and then move on. And for free time, I'm a teenager, so I, like TikTok and Instagram, but it's so important too to like get off your screen for a little bit. I know we've basically been living online for, during this time. So I like to get outside, play some sports, and, that's kind of what I like to do, and go for walks with my family. So yeah, spend time with your family, your pets, and get outside is a really good way to kind of de-stress after work and school. So yeah.
Does anyone else have anything to say? Megan?
Yeah, I just want to quickly jump into the question about like relieving stress. I think it's sometimes it's there's been like a funny point recently where it's like gardening is something I'm really passionate about and I really like, and now it like overlaps between like my work and something I really enjoy. But I've definitely found, especially given COVID and quarantine, being outside is like just amazing. Like anytime I'm able to go outside and go out for a hike, I've like practically explored like every state park within Delaware now, which is awesome. And I'm like, I did not know that there was so much natural space here. Has been really great. Other things I like to do, I would consider myself a pretty creative person as well. So like playing music, like singing, like writing, that kind of thing. I love doing that.
Joshua, do you want to round this question off for us?
I mean, Ali and Megan have said everything, but I think the first advice would be time management. So what I've learned to do is use these applications, because again, I'm always on my phone. Because we're Gen Z and our life is all sort of online. So if I'm gonna be on my phone the whole time, I might as well have my phone, sort of working for me. So I fortunately have an assistant, but even before having an assistant, I leverage literally Google Assistant so much, and like setting reminders, setting alarms, using tools like Asana, or just time management tools, Trello or something of the sort, right? It really helps. And I think for like for the part where I am in college, but my college has been off for a while now, but just trying to handle being in college and being a co-founder or literally just a volunteer at any point is so insane. But like Ali said, it's just dedicating particular time to a particular task would help. Procrastination is such what, so I don't know, it can't be just me. Like, I'm such a big fan of it. I used to, so my official title sometimes is procrastinator who gets things done. So I would literally procrastinate till the last minute. I'm like, I'm gonna design this thing, and then I would design it just 1 hour before deadline. But then I know there is a deadline, right? So I don't want to miss the deadline. So that's what happens. So you should set deadlines, and I think it really helps. And then for like relaxing and decompressing, I have over the past couple months literally cut down my usage of social media so much. I open Instagram, I spend less than 10 minutes on Instagram daily now, which is such an improvement, except I have something important to do. And I'm never really on Facebook. I mean, it's a boomer thing. And Twitter is, no, not even TikTok. So I think what I do to decompress is I just listen to music, like Megan, just like being creative, listen to music, probably sing, even though my voice is not the best. And then I try to watch Netflix. But yeah, those are like what I do. You need to like take out that time for yourself sometimes, and of course walk around, because you tend to appreciate the environment more when people are not around it. Like when everywhere is so empty, you just like tend to see the environment like literally for what it is, and it's like, oh, that was there. I never knew that was there. But yeah, that's it.
All right, yeah, and just to add on to what those people said, like for me, like I find that like since like we're all teenagers, right? So like there's like so many like social media, like for example, Snapchat, like TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, that's like specifically designed just to take our time away. And then like personally for me, like I start like scrolling through Instagram, and then like a few minutes later, like I look at the clock and like 30 minutes has like passed already. So for me, like what I do is like I set like a time limit on Instagram. So right now, like the maximum amount of time that I'm allowed to go on Instagram per day is only 30 minutes, to make sure that like Instagram doesn't take too much of my time away. And then as to like relieve stress, so for me, like every day for 30 minutes, like I take like 30 minutes to for myself, like no matter how busy the day gets, just to like relieve my stress.
Yeah, those are some great answers. Camille is happy. All right. Does anyone else have any questions? Feel free to unmute. Yeah. If not, I think we're going to wrap this webinar up. I definitely enjoyed everyone's opinions and personal experiences. It was really eye-opening for me to see everyone from around the world come together and just make this webinar work today. So something that I wanted to touch upon especially was that I actually created a little brochure for the attendees and the presenters. I included all of like the bios of all of our organizations. So we'll probably send it out to you guys through email. After the webinar ends, you'll receive a copy, and if you don't, you can just DM like TUGI or Garden Bank, and we will send you a copy.
Yeah, just to everyone, via like the email that you guys got the link for the Zoom, it will be going out to you guys tonight. So any of you guys that want to learn more about what we're doing, or all the work that we're doing, or just learn how to get involved yourself, it'll all be in that brochure. So hopefully that's a helpful resource to everyone.
Okay. I think that